Admiral Zentkar stood before the massive holographic display aboard the flagship Eternal Dominion, watching as thousands of blue dots representing the Galactic Coalition's greatest armada moved through hyperspace toward their target. 9,500 ships, the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history, all heading toward one small blue planet on the edge of the Orion Spiral. Status report. The Admiral commanded, his four eyes scanning the tactical readout with practiced efficiency. His species, the Veltar, had dominated space warfare for 3 millennia. Their strategic minds were considered the finest in the known galaxy. All fleet groups maintaining formation. Admiral reported Captain Mordaunt from his position at the tactical station. Estimated arrival at the human homeworld in 6 standard cycles. Zentkar's mandibles clicked in satisfaction. 6 cycles to end this irritating rebellion once and for all. The humans had been a thorn in the Coalition's side for far too long. First, they had refused to submit to proper galactic authority when contacted. Then, they had the audacity to destroy several peacekeeping fleets sent to bring them into line. Most insulting of all, they had begun spreading their influence to other worlds, encouraging other species to resist Coalition rule. The Admiral pulled up the intelligence files on the human species. Such an unremarkable race, really. No natural armor like the Kralith. No psychic abilities like the Mentari. No superior technology like the ancient builders had possessed. They were simply ordinary, soft-skinned bipeds from a gravity-heavy world that somehow thought they could stand against the combined might of 800 allied species. "Admiral," came a voice from behind him. Zentkar turned to see Intelligence Director Quintel approaching, her translucent form shimmering slightly in the ship's artificial lighting. The ethereal species rarely involve themselves in military matters directly, preferring to manipulate from the shadows. "Director," Zentkar acknowledged with a formal bow. "What brings you to the command deck? I wanted to review our target assessment one final time before we reach the human system," Quintel said, her voice carrying an odd harmonic that always made other species slightly uncomfortable. "There are inconsistencies in our intelligence that concern me." The Admiral's primary eyes narrowed. "What sort of inconsistencies?" Quintel gestured toward the display, and the image shifted to show the human solar system. "Our scouts report only minimal orbital defenses around Earth. A few hundred ships at most, all of inferior design compared to our technology. Yet this same species has managed to defeat every force we've sent against them so far." "Numbers," Zentkar said dismissively. "They caught our previous fleets off guard with surprise attacks and guerrilla tactics. This time, we bring overwhelming force. 9,500 ships cannot be stopped by a few hundred primitive vessels." "Perhaps," Quintel said, though her tone suggested doubt. "But consider their expansion rate. In just 50 standard years, they've gone from a single world species to controlling 17 systems. That's unprecedented growth. Irrelevant. Today, we end their expansion permanently." The intelligence director's form flickered, a sign of agitation among her kind. "Admiral, what do we actually know about human military doctrine? Their weapons technology? Their ship capabilities?" Zentkar pulled up another display showing comparative technology assessments. Standard kinetic weapons, though with unusually high velocity. Nuclear-based explosives, primitive by our standards. Their ships appear to use chemical rockets for sublight propulsion and some form of spatial distortion drive for faster-than-light travel. All technologies we mastered thousands of years ago, and yet they've consistently outperformed our projections. "Lucky strikes against overconfident commanders," the Admiral said firmly. "This fleet will not make such mistakes. We have veterans from a dozen major campaigns. Our ships carry the finest weapons the Coalition has ever produced. We outnumber them 20-1 at minimum." A new alarm chimed softly, and Captain Mordaunt called out, "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the outer scout ships. They've detected the edge of the human solar system." "Excellent. Begin the deceleration sequence. All ships, are to prepare for final approach. The massive fleet began its transition back to normal space. Thousands of vessels simultaneously dropping out of hyperspace at precise intervals. The coordination alone was a marvel of military precision that had taken months to perfect. Tactical scan of the system, Captain Zendkar ordered. Yes, sir. Passive sensors show interesting readings, Admiral. The humans appear to have significantly more infrastructure than our intelligence suggested. The main display updated, showing the human solar system in detail. Zendkar's confidence faltered slightly as he saw the scope of human development. Massive orbital stations surrounded not just Earth, but every major planet and moon in the system. Asteroid mining operations stretched throughout the system's belt. Most concerning of all, energy signatures indicated industrial capacity far beyond what their projections had suggested. How many ships, Captain? Still scanning, sir. I'm reading approximately 800 vessels in Earth orbit. But, Admiral, there's something unusual about their positioning. Elaborate. They're not arranged defensively. They're in formation patterns I don't recognize. Almost as if what, Captain? As if they're prepared to attack us, sir. Zendkar's laugh was a harsh chittering sound. 800 ships against 9,500? Let them come. Admiral, Quintel interjected softly. Perhaps we should consider their apparent confidence. Why would they position so aggressively if they didn't have some advantage we're not seeing? Because they're humans, the Admiral replied. Our psychological profiles indicate they're an irrationally aggressive species. They probably think bravery will overcome superior numbers and technology. A new voice cut across the command deck. Admiral, we're being hailed by the human fleet. Put it through. The holographic display shifted to show a human figure in what appeared to be a military uniform. The being was unremarkable by galactic standards. No impressive physical features. No obvious signs of genetic enhancement or technological augmentation. Just another soft-skinned mammal. This is Admiral Sarah Chun of the Earth Defense Force, the human said in accented galactic standard. You are in violation of the territorial sovereignty of the Sol system. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences. Zendkar stepped forward, all four of his eyes fixing on the transmission. I'm Admiral Zendkar of the Galactic Coalition Navy. You will surrender unconditionally or be destroyed. You have 1 standard hour to respond. The human admiral's expression didn't change. Admiral Zendkar, you're commanding what appears to be the largest invasion fleet in recorded galactic history. 9,500 ships. Quite impressive. You seem well-informed for a primitive species. Oh, we're very well-informed, Admiral. For instance, we know that your fleet includes ships from 47 different species, each with different tactical doctrines, communication protocols, and weapon systems. We know that your command structure requires consensus approval for major tactical changes from at least 5 senior species representatives. And we know that you've never faced an enemy that fights the way we do. Something in the human's tone made Zendkar's skin crawl. There was no fear there, no desperation, just calm, professional assessment. Your hour begins now, the Admiral said, cutting the transmission. Sir, Captain Mordun said quietly. Sensors are picking up unusual activity throughout the human system. Energy spikes, movement patterns. It's like they're preparing for something specific. They're preparing to die bravely, Zendkar said, but he found his certainty wavering. The human's confidence was unsettling. Director Quintel moved closer. Admiral, I recommend we proceed with extreme caution. There are too many unknowns here. The Coalition has committed this fleet. We cannot show weakness now. Prepare for standard bombardment formation. The massive fleet began its approach toward Earth, 9,500 ships moving with practiced precision. Long-range sensors showed the human vessels beginning to move as well, but their patterns were unlike anything in standard galactic military doctrine. Admiral, came a report from the sensor station. The human ships they're not forming defensive lines. Show me. The tactical display revealed something that made no sense. The human fleet was breaking into small groups, each moving on independent vectors. Some were diving toward the inner planets. Others were accelerating toward the outer system. A few were heading directly toward the Coalition fleet, but most were scattering. Are they retreating? Captain Mordaunt asked. No, Quintel said slowly. They're positioning. But for what? The answer came 37 minutes later when the first human ships came within weapons range of the Coalition fleet's outer perimeter. The engagement began with what should have been a simple exchange. Coalition heavy cruisers firing massive energy beams at the approaching human vessels. The humans didn't fire back. Instead, they did something unexpected. They dodged. Not the slow, predictable evasive maneuvers typical of space combat, but impossibly tight turns and acceleration patterns that should have crushed any crew inside. Human ships twisted and spun through space like fighters, not capital vessels. How are they achieving those acceleration rates? Mordaunt demanded. Before anyone could answer, the human ships opened fire. Instead of the expected energy weapons, they launched what appeared to be simple kinetic projectiles. Metal slugs fired at tremendous velocity. The Coalition ships' energy shields, designed to deflect particle beams and plasma charges, proved useless against solid matter traveling at significant fractions of light speed. The first human salvo punched through 3 heavy cruisers like they were made of paper. Impossible, Zentkar breathed. Those are primitive kinetic weapons. Our shields should stop them easily. Evidently not, sir, came a dry report from the tactical station. The projectiles appear to be traveling at approximately 15% of light speed. Our shields aren't designed for that kind of kinetic impact. How are they accelerating metal to that velocity? Unknown, sir. But it's devastating our forward elements. The battle continued, and what should have been a one-sided slaughter became something else entirely. The human ships fought with a coordination that seemed impossible for such a young species. More disturbing, they seemed to know exactly where to hit each Coalition vessel for maximum effect. They're targeting our weapons systems specifically, reported the damage control officer. They know our ship designs better than we do. That's impossible. These are classified blueprints. Sir, I'm detecting massive energy buildups throughout the human system. Not from their fleet, from their infrastructure. Admiral Zentkar looked at the tactical display with growing horror. The human industrial stations, the ones that had seemed like simple mining and manufacturing facilities, were revealing their true purpose. Each one was powering up weapon systems of unprecedented scale. Those aren't civilian facilities, he realized. They're weapons platforms. The first orbital defense platform fired, sending a beam of focused energy across the solar system that vaporized a Coalition dreadnought in a single shot. Then another fired, and another. Within minutes, the humans had revealed that their entire solar system had been converted into a massive fortress. Every planet, every moon, every asteroid station was armed with weapons that made the Coalition's finest ships look like toys. Admiral, Captain Mordaunt's voice was tight with barely controlled panic. We're not facing 800 ships. We're facing an entire weaponized star system. All fleet elements begin immediate retreat, Zentkar ordered. Emergency jump to hyperspace. Sir, the humans are jamming our FTL drives. We can't jump. Then we fight our way out. But as the battle progressed, it became clear that fighting was exactly what the humans had wanted them to do. Every Coalition tactic was anticipated. Every formation was countered before it could be effective. The humans fought with the precision of a species that had studied galactic warfare for decades and found ways to turn every advantage against itself. How are they doing this? Quintil demanded. They've been in space for barely a century. We've been perfecting warfare for millennia. The answer came from an unexpected source. A secondary communication channel crackled to life, broadcasting across all Coalition frequencies. It was the human admiral again. This is Admiral Chun. I thought you might be wondering how we're managing this. The answer is simple, really. We've been watching you for a very long time. Every time you sent a peacekeeping fleet to some poor world that didn't want to join your Coalition, we were watching. Every time you crushed a rebellion or invaded a system, We recorded it all. We've studied every battle, every tactic, every ship design you've ever used. The transmission continued as coalition ships continued to die around them. You see, Admiral Zentkar, you made one critical error. You assumed that because we're young, we're naive. You thought that because we don't have your advanced technology, we're helpless. But you forgot something important about humanity. What? Zentkar found himself asking the empty air. As if hearing him, Admiral Chun smiled coldly. We learn from our enemies. And we learned fast. The coalition fleet was dying. What had begun as the most confident military operation in galactic history had become a massacre. Admiral Zentkar watched in growing horror as his tactical display showed ship after ship going dark. The humans weren't just defeating them. They were systematically dismantling the greatest armada ever assembled with terrifying efficiency. Damage report, he commanded, though his voice lacked its earlier authority. Captain Mordun's hands shook as he read from his console. We've lost 37% of the fleet, Admiral. The humans have destroyed over 3,000 ships in less than 4 hours. Impossible. We had overwhelming numerical superiority. That is correct, sir. Current projections show complete fleet destruction within 6 hours if we maintain current engagement. Intelligence Director Quintel materialized beside the Admiral's chair, her ethereal form flickering with agitation. Admiral, we need to understand what we're truly facing here. This isn't just superior tactics. The humans are demonstrating capabilities that shouldn't exist. Explain. Their kinetic weapons are somehow achieving velocities that require technology we don't possess. Their ships are pulling acceleration forces that should liquefy any organic crew. Most impossible of all, they seem to know the exact specifications of every ship in our fleet. Admiral Zentkar studied the tactical display more carefully. The human ships moved through his formations like dancers, each one seeming to know exactly where to be and when. They targeted weapon systems with surgical precision, disabled shield generators with single shots, and eliminated command vessels before they could coordinate responses. They're not just winning, he realized with growing dread. They're playing with us. A new alarm sounded, and the ship's AI announced incoming transmission. Admiral Chun appeared on the main screen again, her human features calm and professional despite the carnage surrounding her forces. Admiral Zentkar, I wanted to give you an opportunity to understand what you're facing before this goes any further. You're facing annihilation, human. We still outnumber you 6-1. Do you? Chun smiled slightly. Let me show you something. The transmission shifted to display a tactical overview of the entire solar system. Zentkar's blood chilled as he saw the true scope of human preparations. What he had thought were 800 ships were revealed to be only the mobile elements of Earth's defense. Hidden throughout the system were thousands of additional platforms, stations, and installations, all armed and targeting his fleet. You see, Admiral, you made several critical assumptions. First, you assumed we would fight like other galactic species. Second, you assumed our technology was primitive because it appeared different from yours. Third, and most important, you assumed we were afraid of you. Chun gestured to something off-screen, and new contacts began appearing on the Coalition's sensors. More human ships, emerging from concealment behind asteroids, inside planetary rings, and from what appeared to be empty space itself. The truth is, we've been preparing for this day since our first contact with galactic civilization. We studied every species, every weapon system, every tactical doctrine. We learned from every defeat suffered by those who came before us, and we built accordingly. What are you? Zentkar found himself asking. We're problem solvers, Admiral. When we identified the Coalition as a threat to human independence, we solved that problem. The solution required 50 years of preparation, but we're very patient when we need to be. The human admiral's image shifted to show a cutaway view of a human ship. Zentkar was shocked to see that the interior contained no crew spaces whatsoever. The entire vessel was automated. You assumed our ships contained crews that could be killed by high-G maneuvers. In fact, our combat vessels are entirely robotic. We control them remotely from heavily shielded command centers throughout the system. They can perform maneuvers that would be impossible for any organic crew. That explained the impossible acceleration patterns, but not the devastating effectiveness of human weapons. Your kinetic weapons, more done, interrupted the transmission. How are you achieving those velocities? Simple physics, Captain. We use gravity wells to accelerate projectiles. Every major body in our solar system has been equipped with gravitational accelerators. We can launch metal slugs at significant fractions of light speed using nothing more than focused gravitational fields. The implications hit Zendikar like a physical blow. The humans hadn't just built a fleet, they had turned their entire solar system into a weapon. But how did you know our ship specifications? Our weapon capabilities? That information is classified at the highest levels. Admiral Chen's expression grew colder. Because we've been inside your networks for decades, Admiral. Every time you sent a fleet to conquer another world, we were watching. Every time you updated your tactical databases, we copied them. Every time you designed a new weapon system, we found ways to counter it. Impossible. Coalition cybersecurity is impenetrable. To other galactic species, perhaps. But you never considered that a young species might develop in directions you never imagined. We didn't try to match your computer technology. We created something entirely different. The transmission showed images of human computing systems that made no sense to galactic engineers. Instead of the crystal matrix processors used by advanced civilizations, humans had developed something called quantum computing that operated on principles the Coalition had never explored. Your security was designed to stop attacks from known technology. It was never designed to stop quantum infiltration methods. Director Quintel leaned forward, her form solidifying slightly. You're saying you've been monitoring Coalition communications for decades. Not just monitoring, learning. We know the command codes for every ship in your fleet. We know the personal histories of your senior officers. We know your supply routes, your industrial capacity, and your strategic planning. Most importantly, we know your weaknesses. As if to demonstrate, several Coalition ships suddenly found their own weapon systems turning against them. Automated defense turrets began firing on their own vessels, while confused crews struggled to regain control. Computer viruses, Chen explained casually, inserted into your systems during routine communications updates. We've been very patient, waiting for the right moment to activate them. The scale of human preparation was staggering. This wasn't just military planning. It was a 50-year intelligence operation of unprecedented scope. Why? Zendikar asked. Why go to such lengths? The Coalition offered you membership. You could have joined peacefully. As subjects, Admiral Chen replied. We studied your peaceful integration process, Admiral. Species that join the Coalition surrender their independence, their resources, and their right to self-determination. They become useful vassals in your expansion. We chose a different path. So, you decided to challenge the entire galactic order? We decided to preserve human freedom. Everything else followed from that decision. The battle continued around them, but the outcome was no longer in doubt. Human ships continued their methodical destruction of Coalition forces while suffering minimal casualties themselves. Every human tactic was perfectly executed, every Coalition response anticipated and countered. Admiral, Captain Mordun reported quietly, I'm receiving surrender requests from 17 Coalition ship commanders. Denied. We fight to the last ship. Sir, with respect, we're not fighting. We're being systematically exterminated. Director Quintel's form flickered rapidly, a sign of extreme agitation. Admiral, we need to consider the broader implications here. If the humans can defeat a force this size, they represent a threat to the Coalition itself. One system cannot threaten 800 worlds. Can it? Chen's voice cut through their private conference. Apparently, human technology was also monitoring their internal communications. Tell me, Admiral, What happens to coalition morale when word spreads that a single human system destroyed the largest fleet in galactic history? Other species will rally to our cause. Will they? Or will they wonder if humans might offer them a better alternative to coalition membership? The tactical display showed the continuing destruction of coalition forces. Human ships moved with mechanical precision, eliminating targets with ruthless efficiency. There was no anger in their attacks, no passion, just cold, calculated removal of threats. You see, Admiral, we don't want to conquer anyone. We just want to be left alone. But the coalition doesn't allow that option. So we had to create a deterrent strong enough to make conquest impossible. This fleet is just the beginning, Zentkar said desperately. The coalition will send larger forces. We have the resources of 800 worlds. Do you? How many of those worlds join voluntarily? How many would rebel if they thought they had a chance? How many are already questioning whether coalition rule is worth the cost? The human admiral's words struck at the heart of the coalition's greatest weakness. Their empire was built on intimidation and overwhelming force. But what happened when that force was proven ineffective? We prepared for larger fleets too, Admiral. This system is just our first line of defense. We have other surprises prepared for future attacks, such as, you'll find out if the coalition is foolish enough to try again. The battle was entering its final phase. Fewer than 3,000 coalition ships remained operational, and they were scattered throughout the system, unable to coordinate effectively. Human forces had taken control of local space and were methodically hunting down survivors. Admiral, came a desperate transmission from one of the surviving heavy cruisers. Request permission to attempt hyperspace breakthrough. We cannot remain here. Denied. Reform on my position for final assault. Sir, there's nothing left to assault. The humans have won. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. The greatest military force in galactic history had been defeated by a species barely a century in space. It was impossible to accept, yet undeniable. Admiral Chun, Zentkar said finally, what are your terms for survivors? Unconditional surrender. All weapons systems power down. All ships to submit to boarding parties for inspection and crew removal. Any attempt to activate weapons or communication systems will result in immediate destruction. And our crews will be returned to Coalition space unharmed, along with a complete recording of this engagement. We want the galaxy to understand exactly what happened here today. Director Quintel moved closer to the Admiral's chair. This is our only option, Admiral. We must preserve what we can. Zentkar looked at the tactical display one last time. His mighty fleet was broken, scattered, and helpless. The humans had achieved total victory through preparation, intelligence, and technological superiority disguised as primitiveness. Signal all remaining ships, he said finally. Stand down weapons. Prepare for surrender. Admiral, Captain Mordun said quietly. The galaxy will never be the same after today. No, Zentkar agreed. It won't. Admiral Chen's final transmission was brief and professional. Coalition vessels, begin shutdown procedures immediately. Our boarding parties will arrive within the hour. Any ship that attempts to flee or fight will be destroyed without warning. As human ships moved to surround the survivors, Zentkar realized the true scope of what had happened. The Coalition had sent 9,500 ships to crush human defiance. In return, humanity had delivered a demonstration that would echo across the galaxy for generations. The age of Coalition supremacy was over. The question now was what would replace it. 3 months after the Battle of Seoul, the galaxy was a different place. The news had spread faster than the coalition government could control it. 9,500 ships sent to crush human resistance. 17 ships returned home. Admiral Zentkar sat in a Spartan detention cell aboard the human orbital station designated Sanctuary 7, watching through a small viewport as coalition survivors were processed for return to their homeworlds. The humans had been true to their word. No crews were harmed, no prisoners mistreated. They were simply held until arrangements could be made for repatriation. The irony wasn't lost on him. The primitive humans treated their prisoners better than the civilized coalition treated rebellious populations. A soft chime announced a visitor. The cell door slid open to reveal Admiral Sarah Chun, looking as calm and professional as she had during their first disastrous communication. "Admiral Zentkar," she said with a slight nod. "I wanted to speak with you before your departure tomorrow. Come to gloat over your victory?" "Hardly." Chun took a seat across from him, her manner more like a colleague than a captor. "I wanted to explain some things. You deserve to understand what really happened here. What happened is that my fleet was destroyed by a species that shouldn't have been able to challenge a single coalition cruiser. Your fleet was destroyed because the coalition has become complacent," Chun corrected. "You've grown used to overwhelming technological superiority. You stopped innovating because you didn't think you needed to." She activated a small holographic projector, showing an image of the solar system as it had appeared to his fleet sensors. "You saw what we wanted you to see. Minimal defenses, primitive technology, a small fleet of apparently inferior vessels. But you never asked yourself why a species clever enough to reverse engineer hyperspace travel from crash scout ships would stop there." The hologram shifted, revealing the true extent of human defenses. The entire system was a maze of hidden installations, automated weapon platforms, and concealed fleet elements. 50 years of preparation, Chun continued. From the moment we realized the coalition would never accept our independence, we began planning for this day. But how? Our intelligence networks are extensive. Your intelligence networks told you what you wanted to hear. That humans were aggressive but primitive. That our rapid expansion was due to luck and audacity rather than capability. That our defeats of smaller coalition fleets were flukes. Chun stood and moved to the viewport, looking out at the stars. "The truth is, we spent 5 decades studying not just your technology, but your psychology. We knew that if we appeared too weak, you'd ignore us. If we appeared too strong, you'd send everything at once. So we calibrated our apparent strength to provoke exactly the response we wanted. 9,500 ships. The largest fleet the coalition had ever assembled. Large enough that its defeat would be impossible to hide or dismiss. Large enough that every species in the galaxy would hear about it." Zentkar felt a chill as the implications became clear. "You manipulated the coalition into overcommitting. We gave you a target you couldn't ignore and defenses you thought you could overcome. The result was inevitable." The hologram changed again, showing news feed from across coalition space. Riots on a dozen worlds. Independence movements on a score more. Member species demanding explanations from their coalition representatives. "You see, Admiral, military victory was only part of our strategy. The real goal was to break the myth of coalition invincibility, to show the galaxy that resistance was possible. And now the coalition is fracturing. The coalition was always going to fracture eventually. We just accelerated the timeline." Chun returned to her seat, leaning forward slightly. "Tell me, Admiral, in your centuries of experience, have you ever encountered a species that joined the coalition voluntarily, without coercion or threat?" Zentkar considered the question carefully. In truth, most species joined after demonstration of coalition power. Those that refused faced increasing pressure until compliance became their only option for survival. "The coalition brings order to chaos," he said finally. "The coalition brings conformity through force," Chun corrected. "It stifles innovation, suppresses independence, and reduces every member species to a single role in a vast machine. It worked as long as you faced no serious opposition. But innovation always wins eventually. So what happens now? Do humans plan to conquer the galaxy?" Chun laughed, a genuinely amused sound. "Admiral, we don't want to rule anyone. We just want to be left alone to develop as we choose. The problem is the coalition doesn't allow that option. But other species will expect human protection now. They'll want you to lead them against coalition forces. Some will, and we'll help where we can. But not through conquest or domination. We offer something the Coalition never has, a genuine choice. The hologram shifted to show a map of local space. Several systems were highlighted in blue. These 17 systems have formally requested human protection. We've agreed to provide defensive assistance in exchange for technological and cultural exchange. No territorial claims, no forced integration, no demand for submission. Just cooperation between equals. The Coalition will never accept that. The Coalition is welcome to try preventing it. But I think they'll find that prospect less appealing after what happened here. Zentkar studied the tactical projections. If humans could defeat a 9,000 ship fleet, what could they do with warning and preparation? What could they accomplish with allies? You're creating a rival power block. We're offering an alternative. Species can choose to remain with the Coalition, join our defensive alliance, or remain completely independent. The choice is theirs. And if the Coalition chooses war, Chen's expression hardened slightly. Then the Coalition will lose. We've had 50 years to prepare for one battle, Admiral. How long do you think it would take us to prepare for a war? The implications were staggering. Human technology, demonstrated so devastatingly its soul, spread among dozens of species. Human tactical doctrine adapted to the strengths of different allies. Human intelligence capabilities turned against Coalition infrastructure. The galaxy will burn. Only if the Coalition chooses to light the fire. We prefer peace, Admiral. But we're very good at war when peace isn't an option. A soft chime indicated their conversation was nearly over. Chun stood, preparing to leave. Admiral Zentkar, when you return to Coalition space, you'll be debriefed extensively. You'll be asked to explain how humanity defeated the greatest fleet in galactic history. I want you to tell them the truth, which is that humans are not the primitives you thought we were, that we've been underestimated for the last time, and that the age of Coalition supremacy is over. Shouldn't pause at the door, but also tell them that we're not interested in revenge or conquest. We're interested in coexistence. If the Coalition is willing to accept human independence and stop forcing species into unwilling membership, there's no reason we can't find a peaceful solution. And if they refuse, then they'll discover that humans are very good at solving problems, Admiral. And right now, the Coalition is our biggest problem. After Chen left, Zentkar sat alone with his thoughts. Outside his viewport, the remaining Coalition survivors were being loaded onto transport vessels for the journey home. 17 ships out of 9,500. The numbers would echo through history. But it wasn't just about numbers. It was about what those numbers represented. The Coalition had built its power on the assumption that superior technology and overwhelming force would always prevail. Humans had shattered that assumption with careful planning, superior intelligence, and innovative thinking. The war was far from over. When news of this defeat reached the Coalition Council, there would be calls for massive retaliation. More fleets would be assembled, larger than anything previously imagined. The Coalition's industrial might was enormous, and they would bring all of it to bear against the human threat. But humans had already demonstrated that they learned from every engagement, adapted to every challenge, and prepared for every possibility. How many more impossible victories were they capable of? The transport ship carrying Zentkar home departed Sol System 6 hours later. As they entered hyperspace, he took one last look at the human solar system. From space, it looked peaceful. Blue oceans, white clouds, the gentle glow of orbital installations. But he knew the truth now. Behind that peaceful facade lay the most dangerous military force the galaxy had ever seen. Not because of their weapons or their ships, but because of something far more threatening, their refusal to accept limitations. 3 weeks later, Zentkar stood before the Coalition High Council, delivering his report on the Battle of Sol. The assembled representatives of 800 species listened in stunned silence as he described the systematic destruction of their most powerful fleet. "How many ships can the humans field?" asked Counselor Vexim of the Hegemony. "Unknown. Their entire system appears to be militarized, but their true industrial capacity remains classified. What are their technological capabilities? Beyond our current understanding. They've developed innovations we never considered. What is your strategic assessment, Admiral? Zenthkar paused, considering his words carefully. The truth would be difficult for the Council to accept, but it was necessary. The coalition as we know it is finished, he said finally. We built our power on technological superiority and overwhelming force. The humans have demonstrated that both can be overcome by superior planning and innovative thinking. You recommend surrender? The question came from Supreme Chancellor Morgeth, his tone incredulous. I recommend negotiation. The humans have offered peaceful coexistence. They've demonstrated they can enforce that offer. Continued conflict will only result in more defeats like Sol. Unacceptable. The coalition does not negotiate with rebels. Then, the coalition will continue losing to them. The debate that followed lasted for hours, but the outcome was predetermined. The coalition leadership could not accept that their galactic supremacy had been challenged successfully. Pride demanded retaliation, regardless of the cost. But across coalition space, individual species were making their own calculations. If humans could defeat 9,500 ships, what did that mean for coalition protection? If the mighty coalition navy could be humbled so completely, what other assumptions about galactic power needed to be reconsidered? Within 6 months of the Battle of Sol, 43 coalition member species had begun secret negotiations with human representatives. Not for protection, not for alliance, but for something far more valuable, the freedom to choose their own path. The galaxy was changing. The old order built on fear and overwhelming force was crumbling, replaced by something new and uncertain. Humanity had fired the first shot in a revolution that would reshape galactic civilization. And in the depths of space, human shipyards worked around the clock, preparing for the coalition's inevitable response. They had won the first battle by being underestimated. They would win the war by being prepared for anything. The age of human expansion had begun.